and welcome to irishracing.com for the first episode of our new Formscan season, sponsored by William Hill. I'm delighted to be joined by the king of Cheltenham anti-post, Gavin Lynch. Gavin, how are you keeping?
I'm good, Emma. How are you?
Good now, good. So you were in Thurles yesterday sponsoring the beginner's chase. Good day down there?
Yeah, it was grand. I was stayed down there for a few races, and although the crowd was small, it was a nice day. And Thurles is one of those. It's almost like a spiritual home of Irish national hunt racing. It's very seldom called off. Anyway, somebody once described it as the only national hunt all-weather track that we have. So it's a great spot, yeah. And I like the fact that they took out the second last fence there in the last couple of years. I think that's definitely been a good idea. There's been less fallers anyway, so.
Yeah, it was always a tricky one. I actually remember did Undersow fall at that fence a few years ago on his way to Cheltenham.
He fell at that one or the previous one. I can't remember. Yeah,
he fell coming down the hill there now sometime. But yeah, it's always a good one, Thurles, and like you said, never called off. For pity with Down Royal this week now, I suppose, a bit disappointing. But look, we'll rattle through the weekend's racing anyway. We'll start with Wetherby maybe. With the 150s. The Bet365 listed mares hurdle. It's a tricky enough race, I suppose. There's kind of some good novices coming through from the mares novice hurdle in Cheltenham last year. Dan Skelton has a great record in this race. Won it last year with Molly Ollie's Wishes for the second year in a row. What's kind of sticking out to you here, do you think?
I think it's a tricky race. As you said, some of these have met before. You were well finished ahead of Lucia when she won the mares novice at Cheltenham. And then in Aintree, Katira finished ahead of her, went second to Irish Point over 2.5. Yeah, it's an interesting race. You'd imagine that You Wear Well will try and make the running. There's a horse down the bottom there, the fourth favourite, Stainsby Girl, might take it on. So that could be interesting to see the tactics. Katira, one thing to point out is that Harry Skelton's only had one winner from his last 22. I'm not saying they're running bad, but just to keep it in mind that they're not absolutely bombing. Whereas Jamie Snowden's had two winners, or three winners rather, out of his last five, so he's possibly in better form. Lucia has been a talking horse for a long time now, the last couple of years, and she was slightly disappointed when sent off. I think she was 64th for the mares novice behind, as we said, You Wear Well. So I think tomorrow's definitely her D-Day. She's well handicapped off 136. It's probably slightly surprising that Nikki didn't go for maybe a handicap with her, but I maybe would go for Katira for Dan Skelton, even though the horses aren't bombing. She'll definitely stay the trip, no problem. As I said, she was second over 2.5, so maybe her, but a very interesting race.
Yeah, and just going back to Lucia for a second, she was obviously well hyped up coming into the Cheltenham race. Like, did you kind of buy into that hype, or would you try and ignore it until you get to the big day? Like, I suppose she was ultimately a bit disappointing considering the way she was being talked up. I think there was talk about her even going for the Supreme Novice Hurdle at one stage, but she definitely didn't live up to that billing, did she?
No, she didn't. Now, Nicky, he's a glass half full kind of man, whether it's at night time or during the morning watching the gallops. And he certainly talked her up a lot. He thought she was a fantastic mare, and she is a very good mare. But if she's going to be the mare that he thought she was, she definitely would want to go and win tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you with Katira there. She kind of maybe a bit less exposed than Lucia and You Wear Well. Look, You Wear Well was brilliant at Cheltenham, went off in front, but didn't really back that up at Aintree. Then maybe the race left a bit of a mark on her, but Katira is quite unexposed. I really loved that run at Aintree as well. She was really stepping up in grade massively. So yeah, I think I will stick with you and Katira there, but it's kind of a tricky race betting wise, I suppose. We might move on to the next one anyway. It's the 225 in Wetherby, the Bet365 stairs hurdle, I suppose. It's 3 mile hurdle, grade 2 race. Another interesting one here, Time Hill reverting back to hurdling after a stint in novice chasing. Horses like that, I suppose the stairs hurdle gets a bit of a name for like failed chasers coming back hurdling. He kind of did it differently, I suppose. He went staying hurdling, tried chasing then, and now he reverts back. What are your kind of thoughts on a horse doing it that way? Would it put you off him as a punter, kind of not being able to specialise in one area, or does it matter much to you?
Well, certainly he just, him and Fences didn't get on. He did win the grade 1 at Christmas in Cheltenham. That race fell apart a bit, so his jumping just wasn't good enough, and now he's going back hurdling again. I suppose the stairs hurdle gets a bad name simply because people don't buy these point-to-pointers to win the stairs hurdle. It's kind of an afterthought, as in this case, that horses maybe can't jump fences. Everybody wants to win a Gold Cup. Nobody wants to be a Gary Neville. They don't want to win the stairs hurdle. But Time Hill has been a great servant. He's 9-year-old there for Philip Hobbs. I've just never, ever been in love with the horse. I don't think I've ever backed him. He's had some brilliant wins. this is not the strongest race ever. Possibly he'll win. Maybe Dashel Drasher, who was demoted from second to third in the Stairs Hurdle, he would probably try and make all. Botox has, will probably sit second. So maybe Dashel Drasher, but again, no strong opinion. One thing to point out that's very tricky, and go back to the mare's race there for a second. You were well, Lucia, Katira, they haven't run in 6 or 7 months. So being a punter, backing a horse in those races where they haven't run in so long, you're taking a chance, you're taking a guess. Like look at Corrie Gramber last week, was 6 to 4 in the morning, went off 130, was beaten 20 odd lengths, and the horse now, afterwards, the horse wasn't fit. Whereas beforehand, they were saying that they were very hopeful. So I just would prefer to back a horse second time out of the season personally, because then you know that the horse should be fit. But maybe Dashel Drasher, I won't have a bet in the race, but look at if Time Hill won it, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah, and just picking up your point there of a horse who has run recently, maybe Ambitious Fellow. Look, he might be aptly named, kind of being thrown into this on ratings. At least he has an awful lot to find, but he's trained by a very shrewd man coming over from Ireland with just a one runner. Obviously, has been running away during the summer. Like I thought he was very impressive, winning the Boyle Sports hurdle at the Galway Festival. Only a 7-year-old. I thought he had a bit up his sleeve that day. Look, just looking at the ratings, and he's not favorably weighted giving his rating, but he is coming into it with that edge of fitness. And you know, a lot of these horses in here are kind of aging, getting on, and kind of have lots of question marks about him. I wonder, maybe Peter Fahey might be able to nick one here.
Yeah, he shouldn't win in ratings. He's about £20 to find. He won off 131 in Galway, up to 139 now. Sam Ewing is going over to ride. Why not? It's ambitious, as the name suggests. Peter's an ambitious fellow here. £20 to find. But then again, the others mightn't be fully fit. So, look, if they ran into a place, they'd be thrilled. It's a grade 2. So, yeah, why not?
Yeah, so probably no strong opinions on that one, but we'll move on to the big race of the day now, the Charity Hall Chase, of course. We've got Brave Man's Game, the Gold Cup runner-up, coming back off maybe a slightly disappointing effort at Punchestown last time. Firstly, I suppose, how strongly would you rate that Gold Cup for him, and what did you make of that Punchestown effort from Brave Man's Game?
Yeah, look, he's a top-class horse. He's rated 172. He won the King George. Second of the Gold Cup, Galloping at Champ was a super performance. He won this race last year, so there's lots to like. The only little slight niggle again will be fitness, because Paul Nichols was talking recently that he's either going to run the Charlie Hall or he's going to run in the Betfair Chase. The Betfair Chase is tomorrow in 3 weeks. So I just wonder if the horse was going to be fit, fair enough for the Betfair, but is he definitely going to be fully fit for tomorrow? I'm not so sure. The ground, he was saying that we might go to Wetherby if the ground is soft. He didn't want to have heavy ground in Haydock, but the ground is going to be very testing tomorrow, so we'll see. Ahoy Senor, another 8-year-old, ran this race last year, was beaten 40 lengths. Like, he definitely, if he was in a rock band, he'd be the drummer. Like, he's as mad as a bag of cats. He's got loads of ability. He's rated 169. You'd love to own him, but just you can't rely on him. I think the bet in the race actually is Gentleman's Game at 11 to 8 with William Hill to be in the first two. I see other bookmakers betting without Brave Man's Game, but I would always sooner back a horse 2 places. I think 11 to 8 to be in the first two is a decent bet. The pace in the race, a High Senior will probably lead them along. Brave Man's Game and Gentleman's Game have led before, so they'll sit close. Midnight River will probably sit fourth. He's coming from handicaps. Harry Skelton rather. Dan trains it, Harry rides it. Harry can be a bit fidgety about trying to get involved too soon, so he'll have to bide his time. He'll be happy to finish second or third, but I just think Gentleman's Game, I think he'll run a big race. Ran a cracker. The downside for him is he only had 2 runs over fences. Lovely run the last day behind Easy Game, stayed on very well. He's a gorgeous horse, and I think 11 to 8 being the first two is definitely a bet.
Yeah, I'd probably be with you there. I thought that was a lovely run last time in behind Easy Game at Gore, and I think Dara probably just minded him a bit that day, maybe with further targets in mind. Obviously had his problems. Look, I couldn't have Ahoy Senior either. I don't think he's ever won on season every appearance. He probably is just a bit gassy and a bit fizzy when he comes back on the track after a break. So I couldn't have him either. But look, it's Brave Man's Games to lose, really. I agree. He's a very, very classy horse. But yeah, 11 to 8 William Hill for Gentleman's Game to be in the first two seems like a cracking bet, in fairness.
And also he's getting £6 as well, just to point that out.
Getting £6 as well, yeah. Well, 80's cause. Look, I can't see him beating him, but look, he could give him a bit of a challenge with that edge of race fitness on his side, I suppose. So I think the next
The headline writers will say that the Charlie Hall's a man's game because you've got brave man's game and gentleman's game. So I'm sure somebody will come up with a good pun for that over the weekend.
one for the social media, I'm sure. So we'll go to Ascot then. I think you wanted to mention a horse in 3:15 at Ascot. So it's the handicap hurdle, 2 miles. Compound Philip Hobbs tops the weights. Anything here in particular catching your eye?
Yeah, I just thought that our champ, by the way, there's a horse of Nicky Henderson's in the first race called Immortal. That'll be favourite. It's only had 2 runs. It was second twice in Sandown. It's in off 110. Seems to be chucked in. I'd say that'll be sharp price in the first, but it probably should win. And in 3:15 here, our champ won last Friday in Cheltenham in the first race at the 2-day meeting. Absolutely bolted up. I think won by 7 lengths. It won very, very easy. Same jockey on board, Freddie Gordon, claiming 5 tomorrow. And has gone up £11 from 117 to 128. But certainly, I think our champ, if it shows up in the same form as last week, will take a bit of beating.
So that's a strong mention for our champ at Ascot. Interesting when they're bad. Obviously had a massive reputation coming into Cheltenham from Ben Paulings, came from France. I think was it his first run in the UK at Cheltenham. Maybe he's second, but Rachel Blackmore was booked to ride. It'd be interesting to see if he can progress this season. Obviously, it was very disappointing for Connections.
Yeah,
Just
that was in
chasing
the
the hype at that time.
yeah, that was in the Boodles. There seemed to be a lot of, I
Yeah,
think it was the
Poodles.
Boodles. Yeah, there was a huge amount of money for it that day. Also to point out, in the 3:45 tomorrow at Ascot, one of the best handicap chasers in Britain would be Monbeg Genius. Finished third in the Ultima, behind Fast or Slow and Cork Rambler. Has gone up £7 for that. Everybody's talking about it, that there's a big chase in that horse, whether it be a Welsh National, it could be what's now the Coral Gold Cup at Newbury, maybe, one of those type of races, maybe even an English National. But if Monbeg Genius is 100% fit and ready to go for this Saturday, I seen an interview with John Joe Neal saying the other day that he was asked which race will he go for, and he mentioned the Coral race and also the Welsh National, and he said, yeah, we'll get a run into it first. So I just wonder if tomorrow is D-Day, but we'll see. But certainly it should be a big race in Monbeg Genius this season.
Yeah, it's very interesting form, I suppose. Like behind Cork Rambler and Fast or Slow, like both horses have gone on to frank it massively. How just going back to Fast or Slow for a second, it was interesting. We were at a stable visit at Willie Mullins was there a couple of weeks ago, and he actually didn't seem to think that Fast or Slow overturning the 2 big boys was that big a shock. He said he was a very good horse in France. Like, do you think he could be realistically in the Gold Cup picture this year, or was it just kind of a case of meeting tired horses at the end of the season, do you think?
Yeah, well, I think Galloping the Champ before Punchdown had only had the 3 runs from memory. The John Durkin, Leopardstown, and then on to Cheltenham. And that was his 4th run. Maybe they were slightly over the top, but Fast or Slow, brilliant performance. When they went in the Ultima, they tried to ride him for a late run because it was first time over the trip, but he stays no problem whatsoever. I think he actually won a chase, excuse me, when he was 3 years old in France. So I love that. I love the fact that horses running early, winning a race at 3-year-old is great. But he hasn't had that many runs. I think he's only had maybe 5 runs over fences. He ran a cracker actually in the John Durkin last year. Then he went to 2 miles and then to the Ultima and then won a Punchestown. So I think he's slightly underrated. And I think, 16 to 1 for the Gold Cup. He'd have to have an each race squeak.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the John Durkin coming up in a few weeks' time now, if he'll show up and take on Gallopin des Champs again. It'll be an interesting one, definitely. So I think we'll go on to Cork now on Sunday. Big day down in Cork. Obviously, the Cork National Day. Is it a race you like to bet on or watch even?
I love watching it. Those staying handicap chases are great. In terms of making money, that'd be tough on the list now to try and. But then again, like if you couldn't train the winner of the Cork National, sure it'd be bad. I'm only joking because I know that Emma's dad. Your dad trained the winner this twice, didn't he?
He did. He's won it twice. A long time ago now. I suppose we'll scroll down here. You can see it on Irish Racing. Alakadu was his first winner in 2008. He was actually second in 2007 to Matter Granger, beating a short head, and then the
Okay.
Bishop Looney won it in 2011. So it's a race we like. It's trying to find the next one to win it now will be the next challenge, I suppose.
And you were telling me earlier, how did the Bishop Looney get his name?
Yeah, so there's a syndicate of lads involved from Wales. They were two families, the Looneys and the Bishops. So the first horse they had was naturally enough the Looney Bishop. He finished off racing then, and probably not too imaginative, but they went with the Bishop Looney then after that. So it's a good name. I think the Looney Bishop was probably the better name, but it would kind of catch your eye, right, the name, wouldn't it?
And tell me this: do you remember the 2 days? Were you there in Cork? Was there huge celebrations?
I I remember the first day when Alakadu won it. I think I had been a bit scared by the lad being beaten the year before, Aka Jake, being beaten the short head. And I won't say what age I was now because I definitely shouldn't have been gambling on the track anyway. It's a long time ago now though, so I suppose the rules have changed a small bit. But I think I probably had a tenner each way on the horse. Don't know what price he was now, but he actually crossed the line, and it's very funny because Johnny Ward, who does our Jump to It podcast on a Monday, was involved with the horse, who actually crossed the line in first, Operation Houdini. So we got long story short, we got the race in the steward's room, but somewhere in the interim, I was probably this 11, 12-year-old, had ripped up my betting docket, tossed it all over the stands. Next thing I heard, steward's inquiry, and we had gotten the race. So I was running around the stands trying to pick up all the pieces of the betting docket, which is a memory that will stick out. And then when the Bishop Looney won, I was actually playing a soccer match, and I was promised I could leave the soccer match at halftime to go and watch the race. But I didn't get to leave the match, and I never actually played a soccer match after that. I quit it straight away because I was so upset about missing the race. Yeah.
And
So,
what position did you play?
no, not much good. My sister be a lot better now. She actually went over playing in America. But I played on the wing or up front normally. But playing ladies football now, Gaelic football, very, very poorly at the moment. Just for a
And the
bit of
last
covering.
question, Emma, you said that you told me earlier that you won a point to point, did you?
I did indeed. I won a point to point on the Bishop Looney. So
Oh, go ahead.
he stopped my soccer career, but he got me going riding horses. So it was kind of came full circle, I suppose.
And the point to point after, then a year or two after, was it from the Cork?
Oh, it would have been a few years afterwards now.
Yeah.
I'd say he would have been about 12 or 13, I'd say, when he won the point to point. I owed him in a few. He kind of fell out of it then, and he went over and was a riding horse in England after that. But yeah, he gave me probably one of my favorite days ever in racing. So it's brilliant. He's a
Right. This year's race, it's interesting that Gordon Elliott has a couple of horses up at the top. Deal Care and Royal Thief. One came from Noel Mead, one came from Henry's. They're both having the first run for Gordon Elliott, and Jack is up on Royal Thief, I see. So that's interesting. Perhaps they're putting in Deal Care to keep the weight down for Royal Thief. The horse I like in it, but only a token selection would be Flash to Tuzane. First time out this season for Liz Doyle, so you're taking a chance on fitness. The one thing I'd say is that last year, first time out of the season, put up a brilliant performance in Galway to win by, I think it was 8 lengths of 122. And then on his last run of the season, he finished third in the Scottish National over 4 miles. Ran a cracker, got slightly interfered with by the winner, jumping 3 out. But after the last 8 on very, very well. Carries 10 stone 10. Handles soft ground, definitely stayed the trip. Seems to go well fresh. I think it's 7 or 8 to 1, has a bit of a squeak. Others to note, Sir Bob has had 2 recent hurdle runs. He'd have a squeak even though he's 11. He's older than me. And Glen Quinn Castle for Martin Brazel and JP. A gorgeous horse who a couple of years ago won 7 races in a row. And he's had a couple of good recent runs. So he'd have a squeak for Brian Hayes. But just token selection will be Flash to Tuesday and probably 7 or 8 to 1 each way for Liz Doyle and Richie Deegan.
Yeah, it's an interesting race. I was looking at Royal Thief myself first right now for Gordon. Encouraging to see Jack was put up this morning as well. He's obviously been a bit fragile. He hasn't won a whole pile in his 9 years, but I think it's interesting. Like if you were mentioning earlier about looking at for horses who are on maybe a second or a third run. I mean, especially in a race like this, I suppose 3 mile 4 handicap chase. It's going to be pretty soft down in Cork. Like we've been getting. I'm not too far from the course here. We've been getting kind of constant rain throughout the week. Look, I think they're going to say it's going to be just soft, but it'll be a fair to ask now. A fair few of these are first run out for the season. Like if you look through the last, I think there's 17 winners listed here. I think only 2 or 3 of them have actually won on seasonal reappearance, but it's kind of key to note that 2 of them were actually trained by Gordon Elliott, so he obviously could have them ready for this now, in fairness. And Royal Thief could be one who's there. But you mentioned Glenquin Castle as well for Martin Brazel. He was one that really stood out for me as well. Of course, won 7 in a row. Had a bit of a quiet time then after that. But I thought he just won very, very easily in Galway earlier in the year. He had a nice little run then in a Punchestown handicap hurdle last time out. He'll be fit, and Martin Brazel's a real specialist at these staying chases. He won the Kerry National, obviously. He could have him ready here on off a featherweight. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And just I don't particularly fancy him now or anything, but Walk Away is just a horse I find completely fascinating. A 10-year-old has only won a couple of times. Obviously, like, there's plenty in these who have really seemed kind of fragile throughout their career, but just looking through Walkaway's form, I mean, I'm not sure how he's managed it, but he's managed to be beaten by Champ, Malilla Indo, Faugheen, Easy Game, Allaho, and Asterion Falange in only 9 starts. So he always seems to kind of run into the best of them. But how he'll fare here now, I'm not too sure. But I just thought, how does he keep meeting these horses?
Yeah, Gordon Elliott, you'd hear him saying the odd time, the Martin Pipe used to say, keep yourself in the best of company and keep your horse in the worst of company, as in to give your horse a better chance. But yeah, Walk Away has been going to too many posh dances, definitely. Castle, definitely a good chance, and maybe Flash to Tuesday in each way. That'd be my 2 anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Glenquin Castle, but Flash to Tuesday definitely a real chance for Liz Doyle as well. We might just have a quick look at a couple of the novice races as well earlier in the day. So the 205 is a listed novice hurdle over 3 miles. A couple of interesting ones in these. Anything really catch your eye, Gavin?
Just before we go to that one, Emma, I just want to give you the name of the 130. It's actually a very good mare's maiden hurdle, but it's actually called, I think it's I've left the immersion on mobile. Or sorry, I've left the immersion on maiden hurdle, which I thought was very funny. The 205 Solitary Man ran against Desert Heather the last day, course and distance, 3 mile in Cork. This time Solitary Man is 11 pounds better off, so I could definitely see Enda Bulger's 5-year-old finishing ahead of the mare Desert Heather in this case. They both have to beat What Path. Usually Willie is the favourite in these races, so What Path might be favourite, but I think Solitary Man will win a big race.
Yeah, Solitary Man, I think I'd be with you in that. I put him up as a horse to follow on our Jump 2 podcast a few weeks ago. I thought he was just unlucky to meet a mare with a massive weight swing last time. And I don't think the race really was run to suit him in Cork as well. So yeah, I think Pat probably would be more suited by a sounder surface. I think Willie was running him throughout the summer, and there was a few trainers' quotes there that suggested he would like a bit of better ground. So I think Solitary Man, the race will be lined up for him. But it's just one really interesting horse in there for me. Brave Fortune from Pat Doyle's yard. A 4-year-old hacked up in his point to point in Castletown Gagan early in the year. Like it's a real probably testament to what Pat thinks of him to throw him in here so early, I think. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, it's a big ask. You'd wonder why he wouldn't go for maiden hurdle first, but sure, trainers have their reasons, especially being a 4-year-old turning 5 in January. So it'll be a brilliant performance if he can do it, but probably a tough ask.
Yeah, a very, very tough ask, especially at the weights. He's not getting too much from more experienced older horses, but running in the colours of Flame Bear and Pat Doyle, look, I wouldn't doubt him too much. So it'd be interesting to see how he runs as well. Just last race now we'll have a quick mention of is the Paddy Power Feel Like a Favourite Novice Chase at 2 mile 4. I found this very, very hard looking at it. Did anything in particular stand out to you?
Look, I think the one thing I'll say is that all 7 horses have a chance in this race. There'll definitely be no huge outsider in it. First of all, the Galway jumped really well in Galway the last day in what maybe wasn't the strongest race. Mighty Tom was a decent hurdler. Let's Be Clear About It was very, very good in Gorham Park. I'd imagine he'll be favourite. Lucid Dreams is a nice horse for John Ryan. The last day he took on Willie's horse in the same race as Sinicia. He probably shouldn't have taken on Willie's up front, and he paid for it late on. I'd imagine that they'll ride him with much more restraint, hold him up this time. I think Lucid Dreams will run a big race, but Let's Be Clear About It, probably tough to beat. And just one other horse to mention in the 12:55, the handicap hurdle, a horse called Conyers Hill, trained by Paul Nolan, looked quite exposed there for a long time. The last day it won a maiden hurdle for horses rated 109 or less. It bolted up in bad ground at Clonmel. The ground can get quite deep in Clonmel, so he has no worries with the ground. I think he's off roughly 112. I think there could be a handicap in him.
Interesting one standing out there. Yeah, so I found this race hard. Like, I'd probably go with Mighty Tom if pushed, but tactics could be key here. So he has been held up in previous starts, but I think before he came to King Collins, he actually had made the running a few times, and I think that can really suit a horse in Cork. If they can go out in front and get into a rhythm, they can be very hard to pull back, and a few of these have been held up in the past. So I think whatever goes out and kind of makes the most of it could come out on top here. But look, thanks very much for going through all those, Gavin. What would be your nap of the entire weekend, would you say?
Let's go to Ascot. I'll go for our champ in the 3:15 in Ascot on Saturday.
Our champ in the 3:15, and I'm going to put Solitary Man in the 2:05 in Cork as my nap of the weekend. Look, Gavin, thanks very much for coming on and talking to us. Really enjoyed your selections
Thanks, Emma.
and your analysis over the weekend, and best of luck with your new series starting next week, I think you were saying.
Yeah, there's the website next week. We have 5 videos a week from next Tuesday right up to the end of March, so it'll be busy.
Busy time for you. So getting all those anti-pro selections in.
Great, yeah. Have a good weekend, and hopefully somebody wins the Cork National.
Great, we'll wrap it up there. So thanks very much, Gavin.
Thank you.